Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Today's webinar is 5 ways to use the All Student Scores report. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I will be walking you through an overview of one of our most comprehensive reports in the Hawks Instructor platform. So that All Student Scores report is what we'll be looking at, and basically how you can use that to have basically your gradebook hub, and you can manage grades, review assignments, and make student-specific accommodations. So if you do happen to have any questions throughout my session, please feel free to chat those into the Q&A box located at the bottom center of Zoom, and I'll be sure to answer those and address any questions at the end. With that, I will go ahead and share my screen and get started. And I do want to mention my name is Sarah, and I am on the training and support team here at Hawks, and I hope that you enjoy this session and learn from kind of what you can do in this report. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sign into my Teach account here. So I'm going to just click into one of my demo gradebooks that has some student identifying, information, analytics, and grades. So I'm going to jump over to our reports tab. And as you'll see, we have a lot of different reporting options, but today I'm really just going to focus on this one specific report, which is our All Student Scores report. As you'll notice, we have gone ahead and kind of outlined those 4 key reports. So I definitely encourage you to check all of those out, as they do have a lot of great features and information that you can find. But for today, I will just focus specifically on that All Student Scores. So when you click onto All Student Scores, you'll be able to select a specific section. You can also select specific students that you might want to see, but in this case, I am just going to leave this blank, and that'll allow me to see all students in my section. And then again, you can also select a specific assignment type, but in this instance, I'm just going to leave it as kind of selecting everything. And just to display my students, I'm going to select Display Student Scores. Once I do that, you'll see that full list of all of your students in your section. From here, you'll find the final grade column, the student's letter grade, and then any sort of assignment groups that you have set up listed. So if I have my lessons, tests, and quizzes group, I can see all of those along with the weights of those different groups. And then below that, I see the individual students kind of percentage that they have for each group. From there, under final grades, or right next to it, I would want to point out that we do have some graphing capabilities. So if you click onto that graph icon, you'll see that the final grade, we have a breakdown here using that bar chart of students' grades and the range. We have also the pie chart looking at students' grades. And then we also have this information here where you can see the students' kind of average, median, all of that information you might want to find. Another thing that you'll see is that you can expand out any of these groups to kind of view and see students' individual assignment grades. So if I click to expand out my lessons group, what this will do is give me a breakdown for each lesson and student, and I can see how they did. So what you'll notice here is that, of course, there's not individual, number grades, but instead we dictate that for lessons specifically with these icons. So going to show legend is where you can always reference and review what these icons mean. If, however, you don't remember, what they are when I go through them now. So what you do want to see is a lot of green check marks. This means that these students have completed those lessons on time and they mastered them. So green check mark is good. Yellow check mark means that the student completed the assignment late. The orange exclamation point means that it is past due and the student did not complete or master that lesson. And then that blue sort of square here is that means that the assignment has a due date that's coming up, so it has not yet been entered a grade for the student. So now what you'll see is that you can click on the icon for any of these lessons and have a few options. So one of which is you can click edit score, and this will bring you directly to the page where you're able to edit the student's assignment grade. You can also edit the individual due date for a student. So in this report, and then in the detailed student grades report, those are the only places really for a lesson that you're able to change the student's due date and not affect the section as a whole. As you'll see with expanding out your sort of test group or quizzes group where you might have assigned a web test, you will get that number grade, but you can also click here to update the student settings. So if you're updating student settings for a web test, it will bring you directly to that feature underneath web test where it's the student settings by test or student settings by student, where you can update the sort of general settings for your web test on a per student basis. So if they need time and a half for an extension, that's where you can do that. But looking back here to our lessons, if I did click on edit due date here for a lesson, it'll pull up what the current section due date is, and then it allows me to use the calendar icon or type out what I want that specific student's due date to be and save. Another thing that you'll see is that we have the ability to review student assignments. So if you click on that, that will basically open up the students' attempts where you can review each individual lesson or web test attempt, as you'll see here. So you can see that time spent and their individual questions that they had and what they answered and what the correct answer was. So if I jump back over here, another thing that you'll notice is just if you hover or you can click onto one, if the student did complete that lesson late and you do have a late penalty applied, then here is where you can also just see, you know, when the student completed it along with what score they had. So if it was late and you had that penalty, instead of saying 100, it might say another number here. So that's kind of how you can review and check out all of these, you know, different student grades within this report. Another couple of things that I'll just point out is that the 2 exclamation points means that the score was manually entered or changed. If I look at the legend here, you'll also see that this sort of blue cross means that the student's due date was manually edited as well. So that way it does let you know that it is different than the section as a whole. So besides those things, I do want to point out a few other key things, which is the settings that you're able to change. So under show view settings, by default, this is everything that's sort of checked and what normally comes up. But of course, if you wanted to kind of review this and make edits whenever you are reviewing your report, you can filter and kind of see for the student's last login, which will provide that additional column for you. If you did want to do the student section name, you can include that there, percentage versus points. And you can see the full assignment names. You can expand out all assignment groups so that lessons, quizzes, and tests, besides just clicking on that plus sign, you can click on this box and it'll automatically expand them all out for you. So besides that, I'm going to go ahead and hide those view settings. You'll also see that the assignment reviewer report is also linked from here as well. So you can simply click on to this link from here to be brought to our assignment reviewer report. So that will open up in a new tab. And I do suggest always checking out this report as it has a lot of other good information in there. But for now, I'm just going to jump back here. And then from within this screen, you'll also be able to see that you can click on an individual student's name. So they're all blue and clickable and hyperlinked. So I can select a student. And what this will do is actually bring me directly to the detailed student grades report, which basically means that this allows me to see all of the sort of student grades and information that I was looking at in all student scores, but really just focusing on one specific student at a time. So now I see all of my, for this specific student, their certifications completed, their grades and information, and I can use the actions and have those same sort of abilities to edit their score, edit their due date, or review their assignments. And then if I go ahead and just jump back here to my all student scores again, I did also want to point out that, again, you can choose to filter to specific students or assignment types, but I'll just go ahead and display student scores as a whole. And then from within here, I did want to show you just a couple more things. So if I expand out my lessons group here, now that we've kind of gone over an overview, I'll click into more depth some of these features. So for instance, if I did click on that edit scores option, this would bring me to that screen I was mentioning where we have the edit scores by student underneath the assignments tab. And I see that one specific student that I was looking at changing their score, all of their assignments listed, and then I can choose to, give them credit, select that date, or enter in a score for the student. So I'm going to head back to our all student scores again and display student scores. And then the other thing is underneath our tests or quizzes, assignment groups where I have those web tests assigned. Just like I was mentioning before, if you click onto it, I'll show you what that looks like when you go and edit the specific students' grades from within this report. So if I click on update student settings, that will bring me directly to where I want to be, which is underneath that assignments tab, web test, and then in the specific student settings by student for that test. So now I have that test that I want to kind of update the settings for that specific student, where I can specify what I want their specific start and end dates and times to maybe be, visible or not, password or not, and number of attempts and test length. So going back to the reports tab. So again, from that all student scores report, like we saw, you can click directly into assignment reviewer, or you can also find the link to the detailed student grades by selecting a specific student. I think that this is pretty much everything that I wanted to point out about the all student scores report. One other thing that I will maybe dive a little bit more deeper into, because I do think it's a really helpful report, is that assignment reviewer. So again, it links you directly to assignment reviewer from within all student scores. And I'll just point out a couple of things here. So in this specific report, it'll first start you out underneath the lessons tab, and it'll give you a specific section. But as you'll see here, you can choose to expand that out and even select all sections from that list. Underneath lessons, you'll find the list of your lessons assigned to your section, and it'll also include the submission status. So of course you want to see a lot of green here, meaning that those assignments are getting done on time versus done late or overdue. As you scroll down on the page, you'll find the number of students out of the total in your section that have certified versus who haven't. You'll see also the average amount of time that has been spent in each mode of the courseware for your section as a whole. So we can see the time spent in Learn, practice, and certify. From here, you can select the lesson, a specific one, to open it up. And then first things first, you'll be brought to this Students tab. This will have the list of students in your section, and you'll be able to see and maybe kind of sort and filter to students who have or have not mastered, when they might have completed that lesson, their number of attempts, and then the individual students' time that was spent in learn, practice, and certify, and in total. From here, if a student has at least attempted the lesson, their name is blue, hyperlinked, and clickable. So I can click onto that specific student, and that'll open up that page that we saw before where I can review and see all of their old attempts. Another thing is the analytics tab. So this is really, really helpful because here it's going to show a breakdown of the questions within the specific assignment. So underneath the analytics tab, I can see that there were 8 questions in this lesson. I can see the objective for each question, the difficulty level, and the percentage that was correct versus incorrect, and then the average amount of time that was spent. So from here, I can also just check out this bar chart and find which question was the most frequently missed. So this was 50-50. So I can see that this was the most commonly missed question, and I can actually click on the question from within here or on the bar chart. And what that'll do is pull up a variation of what that question was. So this is really, really helpful because on this analytics tab specifically, there is not that student identifying information. So you are able to find those commonly missed questions, and some instructors even pull this open during class, just making sure that you are, again, on that analytics tab before you do this. So that way you don't see student information, but you can find for your class as a whole those commonly missed questions, and then focus specifically on to those questions and reviewing them with your class to make sure all of the students have a good understanding of how they can solve that problem. And again, if I go back to assignment reviewer, you'll find that, like I mentioned, you can review all of this for the lessons tab, but also for web test as well. So you can see if students have submitted the questions, points, all of that information within assignment reviewer as well for your specific web test. And I think that that is everything that I did want to cover today with you all for how to really take advantage of that all student scores report. And as you saw, you can actually view and get to other reports from this page as well. I think it's a really great sort of gradebook hub where you can focus on getting that student information and grades and reviewing student attempts, seeing their last login information, and also changing any settings for students or grades that you need to, along with due dates. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions that have maybe come into the Q&A. If you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in now. Okay, it looks like there are no questions at this time. I hope that this was helpful to kind of go through as you get ready for the start of the term, and that you have a good understanding of where you can go to review students' grades and information. Please feel free to always reach out to us at our phone number or using the chat if you do have any questions or need assistance. But I hope everyone has a great start to the term, and I will talk with you all later. Thank you.